Hello, my name is Andrew Geary, and welcome to Seismic Sound Off, in-depth conversations in applied geophysics. In this episode, I speak with Shauna Oppert, guest editor for January's The Leading Edge. January's special section highlights 3 case studies focusing on conventional systems. These case studies take place in 3 different regions of the world, with each challenge tackled using innovative approaches to reservoir characterization in complex geologic regions. Shauna showcases how these papers provide insight into designing custom approaches with new technologies to address the geologic parameters challenging reservoir characterization in both new and mature oil and gas fields. Shauna Oppert is a research geophysicist at Chevron. She holds a master's degree in geophysics from the University of Calgary and serves as the chair of the technical committee of SEAM Life of Field. To read this month's special section, visit library.seg.org. Subscribers can read the full articles in the SEG library, and everyone can read the abstracts for free. Now for our conversation. So, The Leading Edge starts 2019 with a special section on conventionals. With the rise of unconventional resources, why the focus on conventionals to start off the year?
Well, I think that's a great question. Although the shale boom has created quite a frenzy in technology advancement on the unconventional side, conventional resources remain a vital asset to the industry, and technology development really continues in this area. Our case studies that we're showcasing in this issue are really helpful to demonstrate the tools that advance our understanding of the reservoir characterization and the application of field data with a targeted approach to solving problems. So this specific issue gives us some fresh insights on addressing reservoir characterization challenges in 3 different conventional geologic regimes from around the world, including the historic prolific fields of the Middle East and the North Sea, also to the more recent oil giants discovered in Brazil's pre-salt.
As you just said, the special sections looks at 3 case studies from different regions in the world. How did the approaches change between these papers due to the different geologic regions?
Well, each paper used targeted processing and inversion approaches to address the specific challenges that the respective field face regarding reservoir characterization. For example, in the Mishrif carbonates in Iraq, a stochastic inversion approach was used to explore the range of facies that may explain the seismic traces. And in the pre-salt Brazil fields, that also involves reservoir characterization of carbonates. But in this case study, we see how igneous rocks complicate the interpretation of good permeability for flow simulation. So in that case, the authors utilize a rock physics inversion combined with a Bayesian approach to classify facies for simulation, taking advantage of the uncertainty to help define alternative scenarios. Finally, in the Brazil pre-salt fields, we also had a complex overburden and a focus on improving the velocity model with tomography, followed by FWI, which really helped to increase the definition of the high perm layers in the reservoir model. Similarly, the North Sea fields can benefit from the high resolution velocity models in FWI. In the last example, we see how the mature fields can exploit the range of different legacy datasets to really help improve imaging and fundamental geologic interpretations.
How might a geophysicist go into looking at these papers to adapt the case studies to their specific region of interest?
Well, that's an interesting question, Andrew. In this case, I think the authors are really able to achieve success in each of these fields because they first recognize the geologic variables that challenge reservoir characterization. And secondly, they utilize the state-of-the-art techniques to create a targeted approach to solve these issues. Each paper recognized the uncertainty that was involved in seismic characterization of the reservoirs, and then they took that uncertainty and utilized it for either in their approach for interpreting the reservoir or in utilizing the interpretations for their geologic and flow simulations. Looking at this at each problem as a holistic approach with integrative type of solutions helps you to know how to address the geologic variables of the rocks that may complicate the geophysical signal. And it's a really good way to approach reservoir characterization in other regions.
So looking at specific papers, Pinna et al. Utilized a Bayesian framework within their workflow for a highly permeable carbonate reservoir. What did this particular framework, the Bayesian framework, allow the authors to do in this case?
Well, this paper is a great example of maximizing the value of classic rock physics inversion for acoustic and shear impedance. by incorporating a Bayesian approach for quantitative interpretation of facies. And it's one of the rare examples of reservoir characterization in the pre-salt Santos Basin. The Bayesian classification of facies enabled quantification of 5 different types of facies, which can then be used to inform probabilistic geologic models and improve the understanding of uncertainty. The authors show how curvature attributes can then be used in combination with the probability volumes to explore other attributes that may be critical for understanding reservoir characterization, including fracturing and flow conduits.
Vinfield et al. Took an innovative approach to a common issue in reservoir characterization. Could you explain just briefly what that common issue is and how did their approach help them find new insights in this mature field they were exploring?
Well, near-surface imaging effects plague the Claymore complex of the North Sea. The authors, in this case, utilized FWI and wavelet shift tomography to build a more accurate, high-resolution velocity model. This paper is a classic example of the benefits of utilizing new technologies to bring to life into mature fields. The paper demonstrates how the authors were able to revitalize the area through an integrative approach to imaging, which utilized the range of wells, interpretations, and the seismic data sets that have been acquired over the years to achieve a superior image for continuing field development.
The last paper, Grant et al., they built off a method from the 2017 best paper presented at the annual meeting. How did they take the methods focused on the North Sea in that particular best paper and adapt it for the Mishriff Reservoir?
Well, in the paper by Grant et al., the authors extended a classic stochastic conversion technique to explore porosity characterization in limestones and marls in the Mishriff Reservoir in Iraq. A critical hurdle in extending this application to carbonates involved demonstrating exponential bed thickness distributions in a carbonate lithofacies column. And not only were they able to demonstrate a good level of prediction in blind wells to extend this technology to carbonates, they were also able to recognize the potential for false high porosity predictions in the presence of multiples. And that's a tool that they can use to help prioritize drilling opportunities.
Yeah, you've mentioned the word probable a few times in some of your responses. How does this special section help geophysicists improve their own probability of successful exploration?
Case studies in these papers provide the analogs for supporting or abandoning similar exploration targets on the basis of seismic reservoir characterization. The Brazil pre-salt has developed into a relatively hot area for conventional offshore exploration in the past decade. The Penne et al. Paper, it's a prime example of challenges in exploration, and it's a good guide to utilizing technology for exploring alternative scenarios. Carbonates in the Middle East are typically plagued by multiple energy that may hinder reservoir characterization, yet the paper by Grant et al. Demonstrates a technology that helps to understand when the noise may be providing actually a misleading result.
What are your own takeaways from these papers that are integrating new technologies to address challenges faced in mature fields?
Well, the Venfield et al. Paper provides a really good perspective on how the oil and gas production in the UK has evolved, particularly in recent years, and how field development has weathered through the downturn. Cost effectiveness is a big driver, and the reluctance to acquire new data in mature fields is a significant issue that many of us have to deal with. What's refreshing about this paper is that the author's integrative approach to utilizing as much legacy data as possible with new technologies to re-image the fields and to revitalize the development.
What was one thing that surprised you from these papers?
One thing that surprised me, I think I was pleasantly surprised to see that we're still invoking older technologies such as inversion, our typical use of inversion, but doing it in new ways and thinking about the geology and what's critical to understanding the seismic image. These types of issues are things that I think will continue to evolve as we grow as an industry in the conventionals.
What do you hope readers of this special section will take away?
I think that the special section delivers a message that conventional assets are still an area for technology development and new insights and learnings in reservoir characterization. Continued advances in imaging and inversion technologies are the tools to explore for new prospects and revitalize mature fields. So I guess I hope that the readers get a sense of these integrative approaches and the unique geologic challenges that were solved in each of these papers.
Well, I appreciate you dedicating your time to work on this special section and for sharing your thoughts on it today.
Okay, thanks a lot, Andrew.
At seg.org/podcast, you will find the complete show notes for this episode. Follow Seismic Sound Off at seg.org/podcast to hear new episodes or subscribe for free on your phone. Seismic Sound Off is sponsored by the SEG Wiki, the place to find hundreds of biographies of geoscientists, open access tutorials, and ongoing translations of SEG's best-selling book, Robert Sheriff's Encyclopedic Dictionary. Type wiki.seg.org into your browser to visit the world's first online geophysics encyclopedia. Original music by Zach Bridges. This episode was hosted, edited, and produced by me, Andrew Geary. The SEG podcast team is Jennifer Crockett, Ashley Rodriguez, Allie McGinnis, and Mick Sweeney. Thank you for listening. This is Seismic Sound Off, signaling off.